Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the show. I always appreciate you guys tuning in. It means the world to me. Now, this episode, we have a great guest. How can I describe this person? I always try to give people unique introductions. This guy in the entertainment business is one of the first people who I felt like had the most sincere human energy towards them, where not only were they like a funny person, but then he also was like just a good person. You know what I mean? One of those people who you're around, you like, no matter what happens in this game, I want to make sure I have the opportunity to work with them because of the energy they put out.
Lies!
And, nah.
I'll play.
But I appreciate her to death. Y'all heard him, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Dean Edwards. What's up, bro? Yeah. Nah,
Alex Babbitt in the building.
You know it, man. It's not a lie neither.
I appreciate that, man.
You've always given that kind of vibe, dude. First engagement I remember you is I'm like 18.
Up in Harlem?
Yeah, up in Harlem.
The Mist.
I needed a ride home. We talking, we like hanging out.
Yeah.
I was rolling with, it was after Jay Farrow spot. I got a guest spot, and then what's his name? Russell Peters was there.
Yep. Ayana Dookie.
Yep.
Did Dookie ride back to Brooklyn with us?
Nah, well maybe.
Because I used to always, because she lived at that time. She lived in Bushwick, and so and she was new to New York City, newer to New York City. This is going back probably like 8-9 years, because I just saw something that said it was like her 3-year celebration.
Since you've been here.
And that was 5 years ago. Yeah, just saw like in your memories on one of the social media platforms. And I remember Marina Franklin. That was Marina's spot, right?
It was Marina's spot and Amina. Yep.
Shout out to Amina.
Yeah, crazy ass
mean
Amina.
braid. Amina is nice with the hair stills, yo.
Yeah. She does. Everybody in comedy here. We're gonna have her on the show too,
Yeah.
because she's one of my favorite people to work
good
with.
people.
But see, I remember because that was one of my early comedy nights where
wow.
One of my first, like, oh shit, Russell P, what the fuck, he DJing?
Right.
It was like a
that's
cool.
true. Yeah, he was. That's what was funny about it. The beauty of comedy. Look, I'm just taking over.
Yeah,
But
it's fine.
the beauty of what we do, and it's funny because I was just listening to an interview on Sway, because Brother Balls and got Sirius XM. That's how
Talk
I
your
get down,
shit,
you know what I mean?
money.
Talk your ish, Sway. And so they were talking about, rest in peace, Biz Markie, and Sway was like, yo, what was dope was that, Biz, you could go anywhere. You mess around and be in Germany, walk in a club, and suddenly I hear, yo, what's up, Sway? Turn, and Biz was DJing over there. And that's how it was. That's what was dope about that spot, The Mist, because The Mist was a spot versus a comedy club. For those that don't know, like a comedy club is strictly for comedy, but The Mist is a restaurant throughout the week.
And it's a movie theater.
And movie
on
theater.
the other side.
Right.
And it's like a hang spot.
And they had spaces. So Marina Franklin and Amina, I think, also they were doing like a Monday or a Thursday night comedy night, and you would have comics from all over, not just the city, but really if you were from out of town. And in New York, you would come and hang out.
That was like a hot show.
It was a
at
hot
that
show.
time.
It was
I
a fire
remember.
show, man. And Russell, shout out to Russ. He was in town. He's like, and next thing you know, he's a DJ.
Yeah.
He's actually a
I didn't know
talented
none of
DJ.
that shit. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting there enamored, teenager, just what the is this comedy? I'll do this forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then like I needed
like,
a
we
ride.
got him.
Yeah. That's how I got hooked. I needed a ride. You was wild cool. It's like, yeah, bro, I'm going to your neighborhood. I'm like, so I got a ride.
Did you ask me or did I tell? Because his was funny. I always
offer?
Well, if I know somebody lives in Brooklyn and I live in Brooklyn, because I pretty much have had a car the majority of all of my comedy career, but I also there have been times when my car was broken, or just, and that's when you ain't got no money, when your car is broken, right?
It's still a car, though.
It's a car, but it's like, it's limping. It ain't gonna make it. It ain't gonna get me to Harlem and back to Brooklyn. At the time I was in the Bronx, get me, to Long Island and back to the BX.
Nah.
So there were times you like, I gotta find somebody that got a car. I'll get them some scraps on the gas, but just so I don't have to be on the Long Island Railroad or be on, the 6 train to the 4 to the, because that's a long night. And so anytime I saw like newer comics that were a little younger than me, and I heard they were like going back to the BK. I would offer like Jordan Rock. I remember anytime, especially like the comic strip, because the comic strip ain't near no trains.
That shit is far.
Comic strip is on 2nd Avenue and like 81st, 82nd, and there's no close train.
Now
that's
the
convenient.
end.
Right now.
But back then, because that's brand new.
Yeah.
Back then, it's like, yo, you got to take the 6 to the 4 to the A, and it's still far.
Yeah, that was a two-fare zone, as we called it. and so I just, if I saw somebody, and I like breaking bread and vibing with people and whatnot. So I always was curious to kick it with people. So I never had a problem. If I knew I was going back to the BK. I was like, yo, you need to ride back to the borough. No, here's the thing with Alex. So, Alex, you give him a ride, and he's like, yeah. So I'm you know where where the junction is? I'm like, Broadway Junction.
I never like telling people exactly where I live because I knew it was far. So I was like, all right, look, I live close. Well, do you know over here? It's kind of over there.
When one starts saying streets and you're like, yeah, you know Pitkin? Yeah. Well, it's further than that, but,
But like 5 minutes
away
from there.
But if you could get me close to the train over there.
Yeah. I would gamble.
Pennsylvania Avenue. You're like, Pennsylvania? That's over near Starlight City. That's far. That's the east.
Well, because I was so bad. You don't got to. Like, it's cool.
Right.
I'm trying to guilt you into not doing it.
I would. It's
and
good.
so, because I've always been enamored by the energy. Like, why are you so, because some people aren't kind. Some people are like just about the business, and you are. You're very much so about like your presentation, all of that. But then you also have this like human thing about you that I think is important. What keeps you there? Because you don't have to. You have the accolades, all that other stuff.
Well, you don't have to, but why not? It takes more energy, in my opinion, and I think my opinion is probably correct. It takes more energy to walk around with that misery and hold on to whatever bitterness. The world's gonna give you enough negative energy, right? Unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yo, I'm on some positive. I love life. The whole ideology of high on life sounds suspect and sounds corny to some people. I'm like, hey man, I wake up, I look in the morning, I wake up, I'm grateful, take my little 30 minutes to an hour and just stay still. I'm grateful and thankful that I saw another day because I know somebody didn't have a chance to wake up, or somebody else is waking up in another part of the world that has it way worse than me, and so I've been blessed to be around some great comics. I met Bernie Mac less than a year in, and backstage at one of his concerts. This is like right when Def Comedy Jam premiered. Like this is when in the first year of the whole sort of black comedy revolution.
Like what, 98?
This is 92. This is 92.
To give context, Dean Edwards has been doing stand-up for 25?
No, I've been doing this. It will be February 21st, 2022.
It'll be 30 years.
That's fucking crazy.
30 years, man.
30 years in the game.
Black don't crack.
Yeah. We gonna add like a sound effect or cartoon noise to that fucking moment.
Black don't crack.
Fucking
doing it
30 years in the
time.
game.
Yeah,
I gotta give you the context before we continue. He's
Yeah.
He's been on SNL. He's been on They Ready. Literally anything you could think of that is an accolade for a black artist or just an artist in fucking general. Dean has done it. You know what I mean? So as you were saying, so
so I met Bernie, man, and I always say because I did Def Comedy Jam, but by the time I did Def Jam, it wasn't the it was still a wonderful experience. It was my first TV opportunity. Being on HBO and just being part of that fraternity of so many great comics.
Same.
But the morning after I did the show, people were like, "There go Dean Edwards." Right? But that first season and a half of Def Comedy Jam, where you had Bernie Mac and Eddie Griffin, Bill Bellamy, Adele Givens, I think Simply Marvelous might have been that early. Reggie McFadden.
Yeah.
You had some comic dynamos, Steve Harvey, a lot of the Kings of Comedy, D.L. Hughley said. You just had these great comics that hamburger. You know, when they first,
Everybody says his name just like
hamburger.
that.
Well, because you can't say hamburger. You gotta say hamburger. You know, shout out to Hamburger, man. And you should have him on. I know
love
he got
that
stories for
hamburger.
days. And all of those cats, you know, when they first came, it was explosive because we had never seen anything like that, right? Like when I was first, I realized 10 years prior that I wanted to, you know, pursue comedy when I was real young, and at the time you didn't see, if you saw black people, with the exception of names, of the exception of Eddie Murphy, Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor.
Yeah, the five people.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't see us in mass like that. You would turn on A&E's Evening at the Improv, and you might see Franklin Ajayi, maybe Keenan Ivory Wayans when he still had a little afro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you didn't see us that often. And so when Def Comedy Jam first hit, and you had Showtime at the Apollo and even Uptown Comedy Club, but Def Jam kind of just blew it all up. And yeah, man, Bernie was at the forefront of the comics that really popped. Comics that had been out there toiling on the Chitlin circuit for years, and now they were getting an opportunity to get some real money, get some real acclaim and recognition and acknowledgement. And Bernie was doing like a theater. I'm in college at the time, upstate, up in Rochester, and Bernie's doing like this 3,000 to 5,000 seat theater. I'm backstage because a friend of mine is open for him, and I was like, I didn't know what to say to him, and I was like, hey, Bernie, man, I'm a big fan, man, and gonna be, you don't know what to say. It's a New York thing. You like, nah, I don't want to sweat nobody, but I gotta let son know I respect.
I fuck with you, fam.
So I was like, I'm gonna be there one day. He was like, what you mean? You already here? There's room at the Cross. You here, ain't you? You on stage? You a comedian, ain't you? I said, yeah. He was like, there's room at the Cross. I still don't know what room at the Cross means, but I kinda understand. He's saying there's room at the table. We all in it.
Yeah.
And so anytime I meet somebody in there, especially if they're a new comic, he encouraged me, and so I'm like, I'm all about encouraging somebody, because Bernie set an example for me when he really didn't have to, not so much even on some he's at a higher quote unquote level than me, but he was getting ready to go do an hour on stage, and because I was new and young in this, I didn't understand, sometimes
you need your space.
You need to give people their space, and so I appreciate him not leg swooping my energy and my ego and just saying, nah, man, you know what? You're doing the right thing. If you're a comedian, keep being a comedian. People ask me all the time, what like advice. I'm not big on advice, because what worked for me might not work for Alex Babbitt, might not work for the next cat. So I only tell people my experience and tell them, really, just get on stage, right? There's no shortcut to what we do as stand-ups, right? Get on stage and you will get better the more you get on stage. And so that's why I'm the way I am. And I was fortunate enough, a decade later, I'm a cast member on Saturday Night Live, and Bernie Mac is in my office, and I can share that story with him.
Oh, that's great.
And I was able to say, hey, man, I know you don't remember this, right? I know you don't remember this, but thank you for just being a genuinely decent human being.
Yeah.
And offering me some kind words when I first started out. And he and I got cool. Like, me and Bernie got real tight that week, man. Rest in peace. I still miss him. He's like, he was, when people ask me who my favorite guest host on Saturday Night Live was, you have certain favorites, because like Reese Witherspoon and Alicia Keys were my first episode. And Latifah was dope, because that's somebody who we grew with Latifah. But Bernie Mac, hands down, the nicest, the most genuine and nice person in Hollywood I ever experienced and encountered.
Fire. And I've heard, and it was crazy, that's how this game is so small. I've heard that about him. So I never had the pleasure of meeting him. He's passed before I came in. But I've heard the industry always talks about people's character in the long term versus like, yes, you might be talented, you do impressions, all of that. But your character resonates with people way more.
I agree, and honestly, that's what you want. I want people to be able to say, yo, his parents did a good job. That's real talk.
That's fire.
That's real talk.
And that still resonates even in the entertainment field. It's just like, yo, I want my mom to be happy
That's all.
about what I'm doing.
Yeah, because it matters. You got something right under your left eye. It's like a piece of, it was just like a
Team,
fuzz.
where's the team? Fucking me up, team. Just had me struggling for 30 minutes. Y'all negative. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I wanted to know also, since you talked about your family and stuff like that, we always like to give people's kind of origin story, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't got to be the generic, well, I started here,
Yeah.
but like, I ask this. Were you the funniest person in your scene? Who was your comedic inspiration? It doesn't have to be a comedian, but like who was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uncle, auntie, who was it?
Nah, my comedic inspiration, probably it was Eddie Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
It was Eddie Murphy because Eddie Murphy was a young cat that was doing it. We had seen comedians before. I'd seen Bill Cosby. I'd seen Richard Pryor. I remember sitting on the back of the bus going up to, I want to say, New Rochelle, going up to the Galleria Mall, and these dudes were on there with their box. They had recorded Richard Pryor live in concert when it was playing in the theater. And
Just bootlegged it?
yeah, because that's what people did. You bring your box in, you record it, and then you listen to it later on. They were laughing. I didn't know what they were laughing at, but my brother, he's like, yeah, that's Richard Pryor. And then when I saw Richard Pryor live in concert later on, I was like, oh, that's what they were laughing at. And it spoke to me, and it was funny, but he was an adult to me, right? Pryor was an adult. When
He was
I
like
saw,
an old head.
Yeah, and he wasn't even that old, right?
He might have been older, 38.
Right, if that, he probably was younger. But to me, seeing Richard Pryor, he had a mustache, he had an afro. He was like my parents' level.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw Eddie Murphy, I think he did Delirious. He was 22.
20.
He was 22,
Yeah.
so he still had he had youth swagger.
Yeah.
And this is like back when hip hop was first bubbling, and so our heroes are Run and the Rocksteady crew.
Yeah, and he was inspired by Elvis and all of that.
Yeah, and so, but he was part of that because it was all that early era of hip hop. He had what we sort of coined as that hip hop energy. It was really just youth energy. It was just he had a younger swagger. He had a certain assuredness for such a young individual, and so that spoke to me. And then there was some of his material from like Ice Cream and those things that spoke to me because we had just moved to the suburbs. So all those things like clicked.
Shit. That shoehorn bit got me early. My mom put me on to, he got the bit where he's like, you ever try to find a pussy? He's like, you got a shoehorn or something? I lost it.
Yeah, that was.
Because I didn't hear that until I got into stand-up. But when I did, I was like, this, because I knew him as the voice of the dragon from Mulan.
And that's to me, that's what's funny about somebody like Murphy. I said Murph like we tight. That's how I do. I get in Eddie Murphy's head, and then next thing you know, I'm talking like we know each other. But yeah, that to me, what's funny about somebody like Eddie Murphy is, you do the math. He's been doing it at such a high level for the better part of almost 40 years, right? And my generation knows Eddie's stand-up first. Yeah. Right? Your generation, even my kids that are even younger, they know Eddie as maybe Dr. Doolittle and Donkey from Shrek.
Yes, that's
right?
I knew him as the dragon from Mulan.
Right. And so to hear that is funny to me because I'm like, you gotta understand, like Eddie hasn't done stand-up like that in 25, 30 years.
You wouldn't know. I didn't know. My mom put me, literally, she had told me, have you ever seen Delirious? I was like, I don't know what Delirious is.
Your mom is dope just on that for his mom saying, yo, have you ever seen Delirious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom, I got a solid mom. Was like, because she was more supportive. So she knew I wasn't going to college and that. So she got me this book, Black Comedians and Black Comedy. The only book I've read cover to cover.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was just like, it gravitated towards it in high school, and I was really into that, and she was like, yo, you gotta watch Delirious. And I had seen Chappelle and everything like that, and Delirious is one of the first specials that I've seen, like, this is hands down the most talented thing I've ever watched.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
It's that, and this is what, 30 years?
That was 1983. That was so yeah. That's
Still
almost yeah. Wow, damn. That was a long time.
And I just enjoyed every bit of it. So that was like your inspiration, because that was was he the young cool guy?
He was. He was the dude. It was like high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like look at, if it's high school, you look like, I want to be like him.
He get girls. Like
he gets all the girls. And he said that too. I remember he was on Letterman's old show, and he had like some new car, and they were like, so what is it, Letterman? He's like, so what is about that car? Is it 400 horsepower? And he was like, he's like, I got it so girls can say, look at that car. And that's it. Like, he into the horsepower and the engine power and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody actually, a very important person to me, asked me and wanted to know, so I had to ask you, right? Mm-hmm. You have all the accolades and this, that, and the third, but what was the early parts of your life in terms of jobs? Like, did you just have a seamless success? Like, I was working.
Nah.
The no was so fast.
Nah,
no, not at all.
We were all broke. I remember living in Bed-Stuy on Green between Bedford and Nostrand, and my boy Todd Lynn, rest in peace. Todd, he moved here from Ohio, so he stayed. I had the entire top floor of a brownstone. And I know that was probably like, I wasn't paying anything for that, but this was Bed-Stuy before it became Stuyvesant Heights to the Sex and the
It's
City.
post crack. This is
pre Sex and the City made Brooklyn cool to move to, and yeah, we broke, man. I remember like sitting in there and us like saying, all right, you got $5, I got $5. We're gonna buy a big hero. We're gonna buy a big submarine sandwich.
Cut it at 18?
And we got 4 quarters, and this is lunch, and this is dinner, and a bag of Wise potato chips, right? And yeah, man, I remember working I had a 9 to 5 downtown Brooklyn, a place called Positive Promotions. It was a telemarketing gig, where people I worked there. That was the last 9 to 5 job I had.
How long were you doing that?
I telemarketed for years, but particularly there, I was there about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was there 2 years, and then during that time, I had done Def Comedy Jam, and I started learning how to make money on the black circuit, on the urban circuit. Mm-hmm. And then,
so what you saying, like 4 years, 4 or 5 years? Like how many years in
so
comedy?
I started in 92. In 92. I worked until 97. I worked 9 to 5 until 97, because I was also in college for the first, say, 2 years. And then from 94, I was just saving money. And then 95 through 97, I was working at Positive Promotions. I moved. I'm now in Brooklyn, because the job was in Brooklyn, downtown. And I worked that joint. And then the first time I went on the road and actually did an actual tour, there was a tour back in the days called the Creative Tour, right? And the Creative Tour was, I think the organizer, I think he's Kev's, Kevin Hart. Sorry.
You say so many names so casually. I'm like, who? Kev?
Right.
Kevin Smith? Kevin James?
Kevin Hart's road manager now, I think, is Nate. I want to say Nate Smith. Nate organized back in the days all the little one-nighters, like we were talking about Mist in Harlem. Mm-hmm. So what he did, which was smart, or someone did, and he just helped run it, organized all the one-nighters up and down the East Coast. So this is from it really was like Richmond and Virginia Beach, and then
Atlanta maybe.
Yeah, so it was Richmond, because you just went down. So it's Richmond, Virginia Beach, Charlotte, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, Atlanta, and I want to say
maybe Maybe DC?
Knoxville, no, there's no DC. And there was like a Knoxville or Nashville, Tennessee. I think there was also Miami in there.
Okay.
So going into, so right after we did Def Jam, Bob Sumner, Bob Sumner, he put me in Tide, man. Yo, and that's the thing. Nah, I always mess with Bob.
Bob is so funny. He's one of the funniest characters in comedy.
Yeah, no, Bob is dope. So Bob, he's like, yo, I'm gonna put you and Todd are gonna go on the creative tour, and Todd's headlining, and I'm featuring. So I think like Todd was getting like, say, like $300-400 a show. I was getting like $150, $200 a show. So we have 2 weeks of shows that I gotta drive to Ohio to pick Todd up, and then we're just gonna go down the Eastern Seaboard, hitting these. So I was like, you know what, I'm doing this, and I'm looking at the money. At this point, I'm working a 9 to 5. I'm doing a 40+ hour week, making probably eight something an hour. Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? No more than. I think it was like $850 an hour. So I was probably bringing home like $300 a week. So that's $1,200 a month. And this tour, I'm going and doing 15-minute sets every night, and I think I stood to make probably a little more than I was gonna make in a month in 2 weeks on the road, doing really about what, like less than 2 hours of work per week, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, there's something to this. And back at that time, there were a lot of black rooms, especially in like New York City tri-state area. Everybody had a room, right?
Yeah.
Drew Frazier had Manhattan Proper, Nakasaki's Talent had like El Flamingo and LeBar Bat, like so you could go and get like a decent little pocket change, a decent check every night. And so after doing the creative, and here's the funny thing, after the creative tour, I went with probably about, I think we had like 15 shows, but then at least like 5 or 6 of them canceled. Right?
The game.
So that's the game.
Fucking
right?
game.
That's the game.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
I love
real.
to hear that because
No.
it happens now.
It still happens. The game ain't never gonna change.
I had a
It's
fucking
always-
storm cancel my shit. It's a whole
dude.
hurricane.
And you be mad because every time a show cancels, you're like, all right, but okay,
I
still,
can maneuver.
I can still, you know what? Okay, that's okay. I still have money for rent.
I ain't even need that money, really.
I have the rent money, and I could pay Cablevision, and I can pay
split
like my
this up.
phone bill. We can split the Verizon, and I still will wind up like $400 cash for me.
Yeah.
So I could buy like a nice pair, maybe some Jordans and a nice blazer or whatever.
Yep.
And then you lose one show, you're like, all right, I don't need that blazer. I don't need that blazer, but I'm still getting my new Timbs. I'm getting like my new Jordans, and you lose another show. Like, all right, who needs all that footwear?
I got some thick socks.
Right. So then by the end of the tour, I still came home with probably a little more. I probably came home with because you don't factor in, this is also what the teaching, what you learned going on that first tour. What I learned on that first tour was, you are getting paid this money, but you're not factoring in expenses.
Yeah.
And gas and you gotta eat.
Yeah.
And so all of that. And so if you thought you were coming home with $1,500, you might only come home with, even after losing those shows, you might only come home with, $1,150.
Yeah.
Right? And so now you're like, as you mature in comedy, you realize, okay, I need to make at least this much money. They gotta cover my travel.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta give me something for travel, right?
Yeah.
They gotta give me something. They gotta give me a hotel, because that's another thing for like new jacks out there. They'll try to get you with that, like, hey, we're flying you to St. Thomas. So it's like a vacation. Like, man, how much money am I getting paid? Because we're gonna put you up. You're supposed to put me up.
Yeah.
What you think? I was gonna just stay at the airport?
Yeah.
You're supposed to.
You gotta
pay
remember
for
to ask. I had to learn to ask
all of
for
that.
certain shit.
All of that. You gotta because that whole closed mouth don't get fed. It really doesn't. People are going to take advantage of you as much as they can. And so as you mature in this entertainment realm, you learn from experience. You're going to get burnt.
Yeah.
We're all going to get burnt because there's
yes.
always someone that's going to try to get you. Watch the movie Top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5, which I was in.
The Cedric the Entertainer scene?
The Cedric the Entertainer
Yep.
scene, the whole situation of Chris Rock's character going, and he's on tour with Bruce. They're doing dates in Houston. That whole section, anyone that wants to be an entertainer, I don't care if you on the Main Street circuit or the black circuit, but especially if you're on the black circuit, watch that scene. That scene will let you know everything you need to know about, or those scenes as part of that flashback, let you know everything you need to know about, you know, what you're going to experience.
Sketchy promoter.
Janky promoter.
Yeah.
You know, and going back to what you said, I quit my day job when I realized, you know what, even if I lose a couple of shows each week or each month, I still think I've saved up enough money that I'm good for a couple of months. You just gotta take a leap of faith. Like whenever you finally do, every comic that you've had come on here has a different moment. I remember Mike Britt said that Steve Harvey told him you can't serve two masters.
Oh, that's fire.
You can't serve two masters. You know, the more energy you have to focus on your craft and your career and your vocation, that's more energy that if you're not focused and you also have one leg in the corporate world, that's a distraction.
It's just taken from this.
It's a distraction.
It is.
That's why when you watch like a show like Shark Tank, and you'll see like Barbara Corcoran, and she's like, "Are you working a 9 to 5? Do you still have your job?" And people like, "No, I quit." They appreciate that because they're like,
You committed.
You committed, and you like, yo, this has to work.
Yeah, because it's weird when you, like Shark Tank, where it's like, oh yeah, I do hair, but then I also got these baby clothes, and I do comedy. It's like, oh, you're not really about none of those. There's too many things to worry about. But that's fair. That's a very fair thing, because I think a lot of people will hear your story and think, oh, he established himself, because that's what people always think early on.
They don't hear the struggle.
Yeah.
They don't hear about them sandwiches.
Yeah.
them sandwiches, yo.
That shit is embarrassing.
But you know what? It is, but it's not, because we were all poor. Who was I talking to? Jessica Care Moore, who's an amazing poet and talented artist, and she was saying something recently. I met with this director that she just wrote a screenplay. And the director, we were talking about the roaring 90s and how we were all broke. And she made a good point. She said, yeah, but we were all broke and we didn't know it. We were just, because it was the culture of just being out there, and everybody, I'm getting goosebumps, and everybody just hustling, trying to figure out what we were doing and how we were going to go about doing that, you know, seeing the poets on their scene, and you seeing like, you know, the comics on the scene, and you're seeing like Talib and Mos Def on the hip hop scene. Everybody sort of just, we were all Mums, the Schemer, rest in peace. You know, like all these talented cats that were, you know, bubbling and knew we had something, but didn't know how to get it out there. But we didn't care because we were figuring it out as we went.
So you telling the people, yo, enjoy being broke? I don't, but
not
but I
enjoy
appreciate
it. But don't let that hinder you, because you know life will get better. And as bad as you got it, there's always somebody that has it worse. So just take comfort in knowing that when you're at the bottom, there's only one way to go, is up. You know, and if you're at the bottom and you're broke but you're alive, you still got an opportunity to win. Yeah. You know?
But so with the Eddie come up, what was your family? Because it seems like you also had a supportive family as well.
Yeah, I told my parents I want to say it was either September 10th or September 13th of 83. I ran in my parents' room right after watching Delirious. I said, that's what I want to do. Really? I was excited. You know, people say epiphany. It felt like an epiphany, like, because I can still date back and remember that moment where I was just like blown away. I was like, that's because I was a kid that was already doing impressions of cartoon characters, Bugs Bunny or Woody Woodpecker, whomever, right? Yeah. and my family and mimicking, people. So when I saw what Eddie did and the way he went from Michael Jackson to James Brown, and his entire family, his Aunt Bunny and his drunk father at the cookout.
Goonie Goo Goo, that
Goonie
whole,
Goo Goo.
yeah.
I said, can you believe this father muckish? No. And I finally saw someone that must have been similar. So I saw someone that was part of my tribe.
Yeah.
That's how it felt. I saw someone that sort of spoke to my tribe. And, I was like, that's what I want to do. And then my family was like, you know what? He doesn't get in trouble. He's not the greatest student, but he passes, and they allowed me. I would get lost while everybody was out, playing sports or playing in the streets. I was sitting and I would record anything with comedy on it, especially if Eddie Murphy or any black comics were on. So, like I said, like Eddie Murphy used to make appearances, whether it was on Letterman or Oprah or A&E's. I always took in all the comics because I'm a fan of comedy. Whether it was Buddy Hackett or Gallagher or Louis Anderson. I just loved comedy.
Sam Kinison from that era.
Kinison was that era. I'm a big rest in peace Richard Jeni fan.
I don't know what it is. I'm about to look that up.
Look, Richard Jeni. Dude was so funny, man. But he also was troubled because I think he wound up unfortunately committing suicide. And people don't realize the flip side to what we do.
Yeah, a lot of
is there's a lot of loneliness. I remember Tracy Morgan said, yeah, he's like, yo, the road is lonely. The road is lonely. That's why when I can, I bring my own feature, so at least I have someone to kick it with and hang out with, and alleviate the frustration of not being with your family or missing, whatever event you might miss with the family. And so having strong support, and it's great hearing your mom's, gave you that type of support and encouragement. That goes a long way because you and I both know a lot of people that don't have that or didn't have that, and you can see it in their demeanor. You see you're a pleasant individual. So after giving you that ride that first time, even though it's far, I'm like, no, if I'm out and I see son needs a ride, I'll give him a ride because he's a cool dude to just kick it with. Good that. Energy. And people want to be around that, and especially in the realm of Hollywood and entertainment, that's at least 25 to 40% of the battle, man. Is your book. I just had amazing talent and casting director Tracy Moore on my Monday Night Live cast on Instagram for the Mucking Protocol. And she, we were talking last night about how, she started in like sort of event planning where she had an improv troupe that would go out and like they kidnapped some CEO for his birthday, but it was funny.
Yeah.
But it sounded crazy. I was like,
yeah,
I couldn't get that off.
I don't know how that sounds, but I hear you.
Right, but she started that way, and then that turned into her working in music videos and casting music videos, and then she went on to cast shows like New York Undercover and work with Eve and Busta Rhymes. She was their acting coach for 6 years, where she was part of their inner circle. And it comes down to people either want to be around you or people don't want to be around you, right? And in this industry, because it's very, very close space, very, very close knit, if people don't want to rock with you, it's gonna make it hard to get work, and it's gonna get hard to continue working. You might get one or two things, but over the course of time, everybody knows each other, and this camera dude knows this first AD on another set, and when that first AD is like, oh yeah, we have such and such, that camera dude might be, oh, that guy was a headache. All it takes, here's what's funny, all it takes is someone saying, hey, we have Joe Nobody Likes Him coming on, and the other person says, oh, you have him? That's all it takes. That's all it takes. All it takes is them going, oh, or just making.
It's gonna be a hard day.
That makes them say, yeah, he did this, he made that face, and now suddenly you don't get booked, and you don't even know why you don't get the gig.
You was mean to a lot of people,
mean to
yo.
a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
A smile goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
So going back to what you said earlier, me having good energy is just a blessing on how my parents raised me and how the Creator gave me a certain energy and able to sort of brush things off and a certain self-confidence and faith in myself and God. But at the same time, I know that also serves me well in an industry where you can gain or lose opportunities just on how you're perceived.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those lessons that I think people listening will really take in, because a lot of people don't understand or just sit with the fact that this is a industry. It's a business.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? You make a lot of conscious efforts in that, like, especially when it comes to the jokes that you do clean. We've talked about this recently, because I'm always super impressed with a comic who does clean stuff, but it's still interesting.
Yeah, well, because I decided early on, back during that sort of when I met Bernie, I had I guess part of the, I won't even say detriment, but the negative aspect of the success of Def Comedy Jam is that there came a backlash where people presumed that if you were a young black comic, male or female, you only could be funny if you were humping a chair. You could only be funny if you were using expletives, if you were cussing.
Motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
shit. If you don't got a shit in your set.
Right. And I always had a certain self-awareness and also just business sense to say, I don't want to be like everybody else. And then I happened to see Sinbad live around that same time. He was preparing his afros and bell bottoms special.
Great.
Sinbad is a beast, man. Like people don't. He's one of the people I don't think gets his just due, and I don't think people will respect and appreciate how dope Sinbad was. Comics know.
Yeah.
Comedians know how dope Sinbad is, because I've heard comics that have been on the road with him say that we'll be in the mall and he sees something happening, and next thing you know, that night he does an hour on it because his improv skills are so. But his funny is so sharp for doing it for so many years. So I saw him, and I also, every young brother goes through his Malcolm X period, and Malcolm said it takes an intelligent man to be able to communicate without using profanity, and so taking Malcolm's approach and saying, that'd be interesting to challenge myself to see if I could just not cuss in life, and then seeing Sinbad and watching that he had old, young, black, Latino, Asian, white. He had everybody, and and anytime I go to concerts to this day, I don't care if it's comedy, if it's music, I'm watching the performer and then I'm looking around because I'm curious what methods they're using to affect the audience, right, and to elicit a response from the audience. And so I'm watching Sinbad. I'm like, yo, this dude he got everybody's money. He got, seriously, like on some business. I'm like, yo, he got everybody. He has every demographic covered in this room right now, and that was power to me. And I said, I never want to be able to. I never want somebody to limit what they think I can do because of a word, because of language. And and over the course of my career, I've had people that because I did Def Comedy Jam, they assumed that I couldn't do a show clean. I'm like, you don't know what I do, But I also have friends and contemporaries that haven't been able to go do some of the shows I've done, shows that pay extremely well, whether it's overseas, Dubai, Egypt, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, South Africa, Amman, Jordan, Kuwait, comedy, Qatar, Eid Mubarak to all my Muslim friends out there. No, but there's something to be said about not having those limitations based on language. I've had you've known comics that have said, yo, I I'm showcasing for the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
But they told me I gotta be clean. And you see how nervous they start
Yeah.
sweating. I'm like,
Yeah.
son, you're funny. The language should not be what determines you're funny. The language should just be seasoning. Richard Pryor wasn't funny because he said motherfucker, you know.
Yeah.
Richard was funny because there was a stew and there was
subject
meat
matter.
and there was substance. There was potatoes and carrot. There was a stew.
Yeah.
And he might have just added more pepper
more
than
salt.
Bill Cosby did.
Yeah.
Right. That's a whole different story.
he had him more just a dash of Quaalude. That's so wrong.
I didn't say it, Bill. I didn't say that.
Hey, man, I love everybody.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean. And so you know when that's I think a mistake. People, you know, to me that also comes from just watching and reading any and everything I could. Like when you said earlier, you said it's the first book you read
Cover to cover.
cover to cover. Because I'm on this thing. I just had something. I had this article that you know how you'll save something in a tab on your laptop, but you never get to it for like 2 weeks. So I finally it said how to read more or read quicker or whatever. And ultimately, the guy said there's the author. He said there's passive and there's passive reading and there's proactive reading. Passive reading is when you open up your social media and someone has written a paragraph, you're like, I don't feel like reading all this. But it seems engaging, so you read it, but you see typos in it. That's passive. That's reading where you didn't expect to read, but you're in it and you read it. Proactive reading is when you actually say, here, I want to sit down and get something that's been edited and has corrected grammar and substance, and I'm going to read. And it said, you know what, challenge yourself to read 20 pages a day. And when I saw that, I said, 20 pages isn't a lot. I can read 20 pages. And I just finished reading a book on Sunday. I started reading it 10 days prior, and I don't read. I'm not a reader, right?
Yeah.
I'm a comic. I grew up reading comic books because I like a lot of color and pictures,
Same.
right? But I read this book cover to cover, did 20 pages a day, and burned through 200 some odd pages in 10 days, which made me say, oh, it's possible. So that's something I'm not telling you what to do.
No, but that's fair.
I remember Chris Rock said. Oprah Winfrey when Bring the Pain first came out, and that was like Chris Rock's opus that really just took Rock's career to a whole new level, right? He did Bring the Pain. Oprah's like, so what did you do? What would you say changed? Like, why now? Why is it the Chris Rock era now? And Rock was like, I don't know, started reading better books, taking in more information and gaining new insight, and that's what happens. It's like, we all know what we already know or what we already think we know, but when you pick up something and read something that you have no understanding of, no clue of what's happening with regards to that particular subject, you come out of it more enlightened, and that really is what life is about, like constantly enlightening yourself and learning. None of us are as smart as we think we are because there's so much more we don't know.
That's one. My mom is gonna love this episode. Like I know.
Shout out to my Dukes.
Like I know my parents are gonna watch this. Like, see, you need to be like Dean and read more.
That's one book. I just started Paul Mooney's Black is the New White. I just started that yesterday, and I gotta do my 20.
I think I have that
today.
on my bookshelf, so I will.
But here's what's funny. So that means, see, we're very similar.
Yeah.
That means you'll see a book and say, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm gonna get this book.
Yeah.
And then you put it down, and so hold up. So then over the last 15 months, when you have your Zooms and people like, oh, Alex be reading. You're like, son, you read that book? You're like, I got it. Right? I'm the same way.
I remember my older brother telling me, because he had a bookshelf and growing up. And my older brother, I was like, man, you got all these books, you be reading them? And once again, he said, nah, man, girls love a dude with a bookshelf. So I just always wanted to have one for that reason. I've read half of them. Like I read like one of my favorites is like The Alchemist and stuff like I love
great,
books like
one
that.
of my favorite books. Yeah.
But for sure, I have a bookshelf for the aesthetics.
Okay,
it's just,
okay, which is honest, honest. But now that you hear me say that,
yes.
I planted that seed that you're then going to plant, and hopefully it spreads to some other people that are watching this, that'll see this, because 20 pages is not a. No, if 20 seems like a lot, make it 10. But you'll be
in
surprised.
20 days, you'll still have the same result.
Yeah, man. You'll be, by the end of the year, you'll be able to say, yo, I read a good X amount of books. So I was trying to do the math, but I was like 20 days. Shoot.
We didn't talk about math this episode. Only reading.
Right, like if you do 600 pages, if you're doing 20 pages a day and you're doing 30, that's like 600 pages in a month. That's like at least 2 or 3 books. That's a good, 36 books in a year.
Sounds good to me.
Yo, that's impressive. For me, like if I burn through, like I just started, but if I make it through 10 books before the end of the year,
that's
and I
fire.
think I will.
Yeah.
For me, that's a big.
That's a school semester's worth.
Son, that's a lot.
Yeah, you was trying to be an A student when you read 10 books.
Yeah, man. I like the same way I told myself, I'm gonna see if I can not cuss. I'm putting that challenge upon myself because it also gives you some sort of structure.
Yes.
And with what we do, as comics, structure is important because anytime, like with when we were working, when Tiffany called me last August, Tiffany called me mid-August, where
Tiffany Haddish, just in case you think it's a different Tiffany.
Yeah, it's that other Tiffany.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Tiffany Haddish calls me mid-August. She's like, yo, Dean, she was like, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, what's up? And she's like, we're shooting at the beginning of October, so I had 6 weeks to prepare. Really only 4 weeks of shows that I could line up because we were in the middle of this pandemic. So from the beginning of September to the beginning of October, I had a month to prepare. I'm suddenly like I'm working out. I was doing everything that we really should do just generally, right? Right, like all the things you do when you first start as a performer. When you first started, you probably recorded all your sets.
Every show.
Every set. You would watch them, you study them. Oh, I gotta say this, I gotta change that.
Look at your stance, shit
right,
like that.
Right. Oh, why am I leaning on the microphone like that? But over a period of time, you get a little more comfortable, a little more complacent, where you're like, shoot, I got this. I don't need to. I'm not in. So you're not doing all the things that got yourself. You. Yeah, and you got to constantly challenge yourself. So for me, I think the best way to stay sharp is to constantly challenge yourself. I still, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Chris Rock, Louis C.K., Al Franken, comics that have achieved certain aesthetic levels of success and financial success, where Chris Rock don't need to come to a club. he don't need to sit in the comedy cellar, but he does because there's something calling him to tighten his sword, tighten his sword. And so when we see them working hard at their act, you're seeing Colin Quinn, with his legal pad and going over his material that he wrote. And here we are, like, I got this. But then when you see them do it, you're like, yeah, I need to work hard.
Yeah.
I got to tighten up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not as sharp as I think. I saw Jerry Seinfeld in Gotham literally a week ago running 15.
Was that Comedy Juice?
I don't know. It was Monday.
Oh, I was there Tuesday, and he was there. So
he doubled up.
He doubled up.
This multimillionaire who doesn't have to.
Yeah, if ever there's a comic that don't have to do anything else, it's Jerry Seinfeld, and he was in there both on Monday night and Tuesday night.
Running 15. He didn't even do the Chappelle where he might come and do 2 hours.
Right.
He did a structured 15 minutes.
Impressive, man. And so we got work harder, y'all.
Yeah. I love every bit of that, bro. I got 2 more questions to ask you, and I appreciate your time, man. One,
of course.
When it comes to, because you talked about your writing ability, well, more so like why you choose to talk in a particular way, like you don't cuss and stuff like that. When it comes to your writing
But I still
ability,
got swagger.
You do.
I always wanted to make sure, because I'm not to
No, you
cut
could.
you
Go
off,
ahead,
but
bro.
I never, you never hear me say I'm clean.
No.
I don't tell people I'm a clean comic and I work clean. Because I'm just a comedian. I'm funny.
Yeah.
And so I'm not under the labels when people start breaking into, well, I'm a clean comic, I'm a Christian comic. I'm like, but are you funny, right? And for me, one of my favorite experience is when I do my hour. I'm on the road, I do my hour-ish. I'll go a little long. And after the show, having like, you know, all types of people come up, and then have like some hard rock cat come up, yo son, yo my man, yo, son, I don't even come to funny shows, but yo, you got that, B, right? And then he walks away, and then having somebody like, yeah, my mother just want to come, and someone brings their mother or grandmother's like, you know, I noticed you didn't use any of that language, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The first comedian, he was a little, you know what I mean?
He was a little, I've been the first comedian. I've been that guy.
Right.
He was a little dirty, but I do like you.
Right,
but
right.
You gotta maybe don't cuss as much.
Right. But I like presenting it that way, because that way I'm just me. I'm just Dean doing what I do, and I'm a cat raised in hip hop from New York that just loves what I do, and I like for people to see that and understand, because sometimes people are like, oh, he clean, I mean, he corny.
Nah.
Oh, you the smarty art cat. I'm like, nah, son,
Still got swag. You just don't cuss.
Exactly.
And you're like, your process of it, now, because I always ask every guest, we always try to figure out, are you studious in the way of like, yo, you got your notepad? When you do get really focused, super notepad, every word, what is your process?
I'll write every day, but I'll write to clear the pipes. It was a book called The Artist's Way, which I didn't read the whole book. I read up until, this is years ago, there was something called the morning pages, where the idea is you write every morning to sort of clear the pipes and stream of consciousness and get whatever is on your mind. And once you write, then now your creative process can flow. And then whatever material, and it could be anything, whether it's you writing rhymes, you writing story ideas, you writing a screenplay, a teleplay, or jokes. Sometimes I'll sit down and my man Hugh Moore, he got me into writing 5 jokes a day. He writes or wrote 10 jokes a day. So when I heard him say that, I was like, that's a lot.
Just like the books. That's a lot of reading, but I'll do half.
I could do 5. So I just got into the habit of writing 5 jokes a day. 5 jokes that might not necessarily be jokes that you're gonna do on stage. Like those 10 a.m. funnies that I do on social media, a lot of those are just little one-liner bits that I've written over the years.
And
I'm like, just something to throw out there to make someone laugh. It might be corny, might be silly, but there's something, like I think the other day I said, if they don't have opposable thumbs, can Doberman actually pinch her, right?
That's what that is. That's what that is.
But it's really just working. It's really just the idea of exercising the muscle and getting something out on paper. And then if I have an actual joke or joke idea, and it could be anything from talking about, driving to Williamsburg and parking being horrendous out here. Like,
that was like a direct jab.
Yeah.
I saw the pain in your eyes.
The parking over here is terrible, but the funny in that is that because it's a very industrial area over here, and while I'm driving around looking for parking, I'm like, yo, how does the mafia ever dispose of bodies over here? Because this is every movie you see these industrial locations where it's going down, and you're like, I wonder which of these gates, if you lift up, you'll just see like the Italian mafia and the Dominican mafia. Well, do you have the case? Do you have the money? But that's and so that's where
that's the structure. There's the visuals. There's all of that.
Yeah. And so it's honestly just keeping your mind open. I think with all creativity, with all art, whether it's painting or singing or songwriting, rapping or writing stand-up or even writing film and television, like it's really about just keeping your receptors open to all of the stimuli, keeping yourself open to all of the ideas, to allow everything to sort of funnel in and funnel through you so that you can then formulate your own opinions and your own thoughts.
God damn, that's fire. That's fire.
I come with it.
Yeah, bro coming with the gems. I'm about to watch this episode particular over. Like, you know what? I do need to write 5 a day and read.
But once here's what's funny. Once you or anybody that's watching this, if you find that structure, the structure never fails you.
Yes, it's very true.
Putting in the work never fails you. Even if you're only doing it for whatever reason, you might not be a comic, but if you are a comic, you can't. There's nothing wrong with sitting. I think Jerry Seinfeld said he has an office he goes to where he treats it like a job, and he sits down and writes. So I actually this summer I was good most of the pandemic. Then we got back to it, and then all the discipline kind of slipped away. But last year, every day, man, I was like, just to have some purpose.
Yes.
I would sit down, write at least 3 pages of whatever. I was reading, and I was disciplined and just going over every idea. And like that month leading up to the special, I was very disciplined. I was and writing the material, going over the material, rehearsing the material. When I was able to get out on stage, those 4 weekends that I did, I was running the set, shooting, recording it, going back to the hotel and watching it, because I was like, you know what? Tiffany Haddish reached back and gave me and 5 other comics an opportunity. I want her and Netflix and Paige Hurwitz and Wanda at Push It Productions and all of the viewing public when this comes out on Netflix. I want people to say, yo, he put in work.
You did.
Yeah, thank
you
you.
did.
Thank
There was a tag you did. What was it for? Oh, it was a tag you did where I forgot what you were tagging. I forgot how it ended, but it was 50 Cent making fun of Ja Rule. You doing a bunch of impressions, right?
Yeah, impression, right.
Yeah, and then the 50 Cent tag, I just remember. You said something about Ja Rule.
He said, Ja Rule, the fire. It was a joke because it was Netflix.
Yeah.
Like this is the layers of and shout out to Mark Theobald because he helped me with that line. I call it an impression run and I don't think anybody else really does that, where a lot of comics do impressions, but I like to actually put all of the impressions that I do in a scene together, a scene that makes sense.
Yes,
right?
that was very impressive.
And so we were all stuck on Zoom for the last year plus. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna put everybody. I'm not gonna give away the joke, but I'm gonna do this thing via Zoom. And then close with 50 Cent, do something where 50 Cent is referring to Ja Rule and the Fire Festival, and he was socially distanced from his audience for the past.
He's been socially distanced from his audience for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
It's like when you watch it on Netflix, I promise you, out of context, you might not get it.
Right.
But on Netflix, I watched that at home. Was like, that's fucking hysterical.
Right. And that's what I was going for. I wanted people. I didn't want people just to be impressed with the impressions I was doing. I wanted people to laugh, and I wanted people to.
Because that's the old school way to do impressions. It's and now that you've told me, being a fan of Eddie Murphy. He didn't just do a voice. It was a voice in a scenario that wasn't just a crazy arbrary ass scenario. Right. Oh no, this is a thing. You're seeing a picture being painted.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very impressive.
Yeah.
It's fire.
Eddie's a master, so it's like I gotta shoot for the fences like Eddie did. So that was the goal.
And I do watching it. I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's cold. That's cold.
You, sir. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
So I got one more question to ask. We ask it every episode, and you actually said at the beginning you don't like doing this, but we're gonna challenge you anyway.
What advice?
Yes. At the end, we always say, if you could talk to somebody, it's your camera. If you could talk to somebody who may be watching this and they resonate with your energy, your personality, they're you essentially, girl, boy, whatever.
Right.
What's a piece of advice? It doesn't have to be exclusively to stand up, but a piece of advice you'd like to share that you've learned on your way that you feel like could possibly help.
Right. Are we getting a slow zoom?
Yeah, this might be a slow zoom, dramatic music. You know the vibe.
You know what? For anyone out there that's watching this, whatever your vocation is, whether it's the arts, whether it's starting a business, whether it's just getting your life together with yourself or your family, just do it. Just, stop procrastinating. Stop looking for what the book, The War of Art. It's funny, I don't seem to read a lot, but it seems like I read a lot.
You got wild books.
I got wild books, but they're books that I'll reread annually. So one of them is The War of Art by Stephen Pressman. And there's something called resistance. And resistance is anything that's in front of you that will stop you from achieving whatever your goal is. So if you want to pursue songwriting, that means you have to do diligence and do the work. You have to sit down and write songs. If you don't know how to write songs, you have to learn how to write songs, which means listening to a variety of different songs and different songwriters. Look at who's been a successful songwriter. Look at people that have had success but then disappeared. Compare the two and see why one songwriter didn't have longevity and another did. And I guarantee you, most of the ones that were successful and maintained that success were disciplined, and they didn't allow things such as resistance, whether it's I'm gonna write this song. Oh, but first let me check my Instagram feed. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna sit down and write. Oh, but you know what? I gotta call my mother back. Those are all forms of resistance. Mm-hmm. And so ignore the white noise, ignore the resistance, and do your job. Take whatever you want to do seriously and put forth the necessary effort, and you will see returns on that investment. That just sounded so cold. Did y'all underdig? You understand what I just said?
You figured deal me. Yo, Dean, thank you so much, man. It means the world to me.
Of course, Babbitt.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the one and only Dean. I appreciate y'all for watching this episode. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.
2 fingers. Easy.
Hey guys, thank y'all for watching Behind the Mic Stand. If y'all enjoyed it, as I think you did, because you made it to the end, like, subscribe, make sure you hit that notification button so you hear the subscriptions and shit. You know how it works. Just like it. Stop skipping this part and do it right now. Somewhere right here. I think it's right here.